Police have raided Kat Matlala's house, and it's not looking good for him.
I wanted to go to check what is happening, and I saw some guys wearing balaclavas holding assault rifles approaching towards the...
And this cat sure doesn't have 9 lives, especially not after what the police found in his home, because it left everyone shocked. The air in the courtroom on December 6, 2025 is heavy with the weight of Vusimuzi Kat Matlala's alleged crimes. A businessman once known for his lucrative government contracts, who now stands accused of masterminding a string of attempted. His current situation is one of total confinement. He remains securely in custody, a status cemented by a series of failed legal bids for freedom that highlight the severity of the charges and the state's determination to keep him off the streets. Just weeks ago, on November 11, 2025, Matlala and his 4 co-accused, a group that shockingly includes his wife Tsakani, made an appearance in the Alexandra Magistrates Court, a pivotal moment where the complex web of dockets was officially centralized, confirming the case was finally ready for the higher judicial platform. The most crushing blow to his hopes for freedom came swiftly in late October 2025. After the Alexandra Magistrates Court initially denied him bail on September 17th, citing him as a flight risk and a danger to society, Matlala's legal team desperately appealed the decision to the High Court of South Africa, Gauteng Division in Johannesburg. The High Court, however, stood firm. On October 27, 2025, the appeal was unequivocally dismissed, with the court echoing the lower court's finding that the businessman, allegedly in possession of fraudulent identification documents and offshore assets, represented too great a risk to witnesses in the community. A conclusion that leaves one wondering exactly what secrets lie hidden in those foreign bank accounts. The charges against Matlala are not only numerous, but profoundly disturbing, painting a picture of an alleged underworld figure operating with impunity. The latest centralized indictment sees him facing a staggering 11 counts of attempted along with 3 counts of conspiracy to commit and several more for possession of prohibited firearms, money laundering, and fraud, the last 3 falling under the Organized Crime Act. The core of the accusations stems from the alleged botched hit on his former socialite girlfriend, Tebogo Thobajane, in October 2023, where she and 2 others came under fire, but the scope of the case has widened dramatically to include alleged attempted hits on taxi boss Joe Sibignoni in August 2022 and another individual known as DJ Weddies. This consolidation of cases signifies a major strategic victory for the National Prosecuting Authority, unifying years of alleged criminal activity into a single, overwhelming legal front. But the real question remains: will the full extent of this alleged empire be revealed when the trial finally commences? Despite being behind bars, Matlala's activities have continued to shake the foundations of South African law enforcement and politics, proving that even a prison cell cannot fully silence the alleged tenderpreneur. On November 6, 2025, Matlala testified before a Parliament's ad hoc committee where he dramatically accused former police minister Becky Cele of lying under oath about their relationship and even alleged he made a 500,000 rand cash payment to the former minister as a facilitation fee. This testimony, given while shackled at the legs, exposed a chilling narrative of alleged corruption and infiltration at the highest levels of the South African police service, allegations which are central to the ongoing Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The controversy doesn't stop there. Matlala has been linked to a sophisticated, organized criminal syndicate known as the Big Five, and his digital footprint, recovered from his phone, has provided evidence of alleged criminal infiltration at the top echelons of the SAPS, suggesting that this court case is only the beginning of a far larger, more explosive political drama. As the calendar turns to December 6, 2025, Matlala remains in a maximum security remand, awaiting the next, and arguably most crucial, chapter in his legal battle. The Alexandra Magistrates Court has formally transferred the entire matter to the Johannesburg High Court, where his high-stakes trial is scheduled to begin in January 2026. With 11 counts of attempted and accusations of high-level police corruption hanging over his head, the coming year promises a courtroom confrontation that will not only determine the fate of a powerful, controversial businessman, but could also expose the dark heart of organized crime's grip on the country's state institutions. The world is watching to see if Kat Matlala's infamous luck, which saw multiple prior charges withdrawn over the years, has finally run out. But how did Matlala land himself here? Vusimuzi Kat Matlala did not rise to prominence through honest enterprise. His ascent was a dark, calculated climb built upon a foundation of state corruption and alleged violence. His initial footing came not from the polished boardrooms of Santon, but from a troubled past, including a conviction for housebreaking and theft in the early 2000s, an early indicator that Matlala, a Mamelodi resident who moved into private security, had an uncanny ability to navigate the shadows. Yet, the real shift came when he discovered the most lucrative and most corruptible market of all, government tenders. He quickly transitioned from small-time security and goods trading to wielding astonishing influence in the healthcare and policing sectors, positioning himself to siphon millions from the public purse. Investigators later found a detailed, handwritten 10-year plan titled The Blueprint in a safe house, outlining his strategy to move from petty crime to controlling major state contracts, treating corruption not as a side, but as a formal business model. The first truly explosive red flags appeared in 2021, linking Matlala's seemingly small companies, Black AK Trading and Core Kabeng Trading, to massive financial irregularities at the Tembisa hospital. He was part of a syndicate that allegedly pocketed over 13 million rand through suspicious contracts. Crucially, Matlala's operations at the hospital were flagged by whistleblower Babita Deokaran, the Gauteng Health Department's anti-corruption head, who specifically called for an investigation into his dealings. Just 3 weeks after she flagged hundreds of millions in suspect transactions, Deokaran was brutally assassinated. A tragic coincidence that cemented Matlala's name in the growing narrative of tender corruption and silence. The question that haunted investigators then, and still echoes now, is this: was the man who profited from the corruption also responsible for eliminating the threat? The day after Deokaran, Matlala allegedly used an alias to buy a luxury vehicle, an intentional display of power and immunity, showing that had protected rather than threatened his wealth. Despite the smoke of scandal and the of a witness, Matlala's empire did not crumble. It expanded. In a move that shocked the public and exposed the depth of alleged state capture, his company, Medicare 24, was awarded a monumental 360 million rand health services contract with the South African Police Service in 2024. This contract, meant to provide wellness services to approximately 180,000 police members, was greenlit despite a complete lack of relevant qualifications and amid official warnings of fraud and fronting. Subsequent investigations would reveal the alleged true cost of this contract, not just 50 million rand in taxpayer money that disappeared, but evidence suggesting Matlala had channeled vast amounts of cash to high-ranking police officials and politicians, including a former police minister. This astonishing infiltration laid bare a chilling reality. The cat hadn't just secured a tender, he had allegedly captured the very heart of the country's law enforcement. A key piece of evidence, secured by an anonymous leak, was a single, cryptic bank statement showing a massive wire transfer from Medicare 24 to a shell company in the Cayman Islands, traced back to an offshore account allegedly controlled by the former police minister's close relative. This period of explosive growth coincided with Matlala allegedly cementing his position within a notorious criminal syndicate known as the Big Five, or the Cartel, an entity that allegedly controls everything from trafficking and tender fraud to contract killings. It is this alleged merging of political corruption and violent organized crime that ultimately led Matlala to the precipice of his current legal battle. As the web of corruption unraveled and his political protection allegedly began to wane, Matlala himself claimed this was because he stopped paying bribes. The alleged side of his enterprise came into sharp focus. The current 11 counts of attempted he faces stem from a series of shocking, alleged, botched hits, including those targeting his former socialite girlfriend, Tebogo Thobajane, and a prominent taxi boss. These actions, allegedly driven by a desperate need to silence enemies and protect his illicit kingdom, finally severed his fragile protection, proving that the poisoned fruits of corruption eventually lead to a reckoning in a high-security cell. The evidence against him in the attempted cases was reportedly found on a retrieved damaged laptop belonging to a former associate. The files were protected by a passphrase that simply read, "Loyalty is a weapon." Chapter 3. How sticky truly is his situation. For the alleged tenderpreneur and security boss, Vusimuzi Cat Matlala, the stakes could not be higher. He currently stands charged with a litany of offenses that cut across both and economic crime, attempted conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and attempting to defeat the ends of justice. The most severe of these attempted is a Schedule 6 offense, which means that upon conviction, Matlala could be staring down a sentence of life imprisonment. When an alleged hit is orchestrated, not carried out in the heat of the moment, the law views it as premeditated and exceptionally grave. For a man who once flaunted a lifestyle of private jets and luxury brands, this trial is not just about time served, it's about whether the cat will ever again walk free. To ensure Matlala is locked up for good, the National Prosecuting Authority must establish an unbroken chain of evidence so compelling that it strips away any shadow of reasonable doubt. Their strategy hinges on turning the digital and financial paper trail into an ironclad conspiracy charge. The state's arsenal includes WhatsApp communications, allegedly retrieved from his confiscated devices, that link him directly to the individuals accused of the attempted hit on his former girlfriend, socialite Tebogo Thobajane. Even more critically, they possess bank statements showing transfers of money to his co-accused right after payments the state argues were used to finance the hit. The final chilling piece of the puzzle is the ballistics evidence, which investigators claim connects seized from the alleged syndicate to other high-profile, painting Matlala as not just an angry ex-lover, but a key player in the feared Big Five cartel. But even with this mountain of evidence, the defense has an ace up its sleeve, one that could bring the entire prosecution crashing down. Matlala's defense team is tasked with an almost impossible mission, tearing apart the meticulously constructed web of evidence woven by the police. Their path to helping him escape the law is twofold: attacking the evidence and attacking the motive. Firstly, they must sow doubt about the integrity of the state's investigation. Matlala himself has already made the explosive claim that the police fabricated evidence and manipulated the data on his cell phone to justify the attempted charge. By suggesting the data was contaminated or the investigation was politically motivated, the defense can argue that the entire case is a smear job. Secondly, they will need to legitimize the damning financial transfers, arguing the money was for personal, lawful assistance, such as genuine funeral costs, as opposed to a payoff, and that the alleged Eswatini ID and offshore assets are merely the tools of an international businessman, not a flight risk. Ultimately, the best chance for Vusimuzi Matlala to walk free lies in transforming a criminal trial into a political drama. The defense will likely lean heavily on the narratives emerging from the various commissions and inquiries, allegations that Matlala was in a position to expose corruption at the highest levels of the SAPS and is now being targeted as retaliation. By positioning him not as a cartel boss, but as a victim caught in a police succession battle and political power struggle, they aim to confuse the jury. The goal isn't necessarily to prove his innocence, but to generate enough reasonable doubt regarding the state's integrity and motivation. Should they succeed in making the court believe that Matlala is being prosecuted by a corrupt system, then even the most overwhelming evidence of attempted and fraud might not be enough to keep him behind bars. But what was found during his home raid changes that completely. The operation unfolded in December of last year, a period of heightened tension following explosive claims. The target, Matlala's office and private residence. This concerted police action was intrinsically linked to one of the most sensational cases of the year, the alleged plot orchestrated by Matlala and his wife, Sakani, for his ex-girlfriend, the influencer Tebogo Thobajane. Police descended upon the properties, executing a wide-ranging seizure aimed at gathering evidence related to charges of attempted conspiracy to commit and money laundering. The items confiscated by law enforcement were extensive, reflecting the controversial tenderpreneur's lifestyle and business dealings. Among the seized assets were mobile phones, a critical source of digital communication, jewelry, and Matlala's business. The initial seizure was comprehensive, a clear signal that the authorities were building a formidable case. While some items, specifically the mobile phones and were later returned to Matlala in late December, the subsequent chain of custody quickly became the source of a massive legal and criminal contention. The most damning allegation of foul play centered on two specific pieces of evidence: two expensive luxury wristwatches. Matlala's legal team revealed that these timepieces, allegedly seized by police during the raid, were inexplicably missing. In a serious breach of protocol, the watches were reportedly never officially logged in the SAPS 13 exhibit register, the mandatory crucial register used by the police for recording and managing all seized or recovered goods. This anomaly instantly cast a dark shadow over the integrity of the investigation. The police, when confronted, claimed complete ignorance regarding the whereabouts of the high-value assets. This failure to account for crucial seized property, specifically luxury items, was instantly leveraged by the defense as evidence of lax handling, potential corruption, or even theft within the investigation itself. The missing watches became more than just an issue of property. They symbolized the alleged lack of transparency and professionalism the defense claimed permeated the state's case. Matlala's legal team, Victor Nkwashu attorneys, moved swiftly from defense to a powerful counter-offensive. They issued a sharp letter demanding immediate and comprehensive disclosure from the police and the National Prosecuting Authority. The lawyers expressed profound shock and dismay at what they termed the lackadaisical manner in which the state was prosecuting the matter, threatening urgent legal action in a higher court to protect their clients' constitutional rights to a fair trial. Their demands were explicit and non-negotiable. They requested copies of all search warrants, the affidavits used to secure those warrants, and the full outcome of the forensic analysis conducted on all items seized. The lawyers pointed to a host of significant anomalies that they claimed violated Matlala's rights, including the state's reliance on WhatsApp messages and voice notes that had not been disclosed to the accused. Furthermore, they highlighted the unacceptable pace of the investigation on a case reported years prior, the drafting of bail affidavits. Based on undisclosed information and the detrimental leaks of case details to the media, which they argued had already tainted and compromised their client's right to a just process. The legal battle escalated beyond the missing watches and centered on a crisis of disclosure, compelling the state to remedy its outstanding obligations or face a full-scale court challenge aimed at obtaining appropriate relief and ultimately discrediting the prosecution's integrity. The case became a stark example of how allegations of police misconduct and administrative failures, particularly concerning evidence integrity, can profoundly impact the trajectory of a high-profile criminal trial, turning the focus from the initial serious charges to the very conduct of the law enforcement authorities themselves. There you have it. Details about what was uncovered in the raid of Cap Matlala's house. Do you think he can still beat this case, or is he one for after all the new evidence uncovered? Let us know what you think in the comments section, and make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on any new updates.
It's police officers, and we hereby send our heartfelt condolences to everybody involved. Secondly, what we've heard and seen up till now is the involvement of the authorities, which is doing a good job.
Before the fire, before the chaos, before the headlines, there were simply 3 officers doing what they always did, serving their community. Constable M. Zoxalo Eric Moko and Sergeant Mandasi Sapa were known for their discipline, reliability, and the calm confidence that comes from years of facing danger head-on. The 3rd officer, whose name remains protected for safety reasons, was just as committed, a quiet professional who believed deeply in the responsibility that came with wearing the SAPS uniform. None of them knew that this patrol would become one of the darkest days of their careers.
And so far, there's nothing really sinister in losing control because it happens on a daily basis. Not that we are downplaying what happened, but there is no, we don't suspect anything, any foul play so far.
On that afternoon, their assignment was routine. Check on a call, ensure the area was safe, and return to the station like they had done countless times before. They weren't chasing suspects or responding to a They weren't expecting confrontation. They were simply doing their job, maintaining order in a community where crime often hides behind ordinary streets and familiar houses. But what they didn't know was that someone else had already decided how their day would end. The trap was already set. They were unknowingly driving straight into a coordinated attack planned by people who had been watching them long before they turned that corner. For the officers, the patrol felt normal. A quiet drive, a simple call, a street that looked like any other. But beneath that normality, danger was waiting. The attackers knew the route. They knew the vehicle. They knew exactly when to strike. And the saddest part is that the officers had no warning. There was no suspicious movement, no distress call, no hint that their lives were seconds away from being turned upside down. It's the kind of moment that reminds you how vulnerable even the bravest officers can be. They walked into the ambush believing they were in control, unaware that they had become the target of a calculated plan. The strange thing about that day is how peaceful everything looked at first. The neighborhood was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of silence that feels normal on the surface, but hides something heavier beneath it. The streets were calm, the houses still, and there was nothing about the surroundings that suggested danger was near. Anyone passing by would have assumed it was just another slow afternoon.
We believe that it's going to be a very thorough investigation, and as they go, if they can confirm something, they will go on that track. But also, it is very important not to approach some incident like this with eye flaps on. You have to keep an open mind.
Even the officers felt that sense of routine as their patrol vehicle moved slowly through the area. Inside the vehicle, the three officers were focused, doing what trained professionals always do: scanning their surroundings, checking the call details, and staying alert. But alert doesn't mean psychic. They could only react to what they could see, and at that moment, everything seemed ordinary. The kind of ordinary that makes you lower your guard without even realizing it. They had no idea that eyes were already on them, watching their every move. The were hidden out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment. What makes this part of the story so chilling is the presence of the CCTV cameras. Silent, steady, and emotionless, they recorded everything without warning anyone. Every slow turn of the police vehicle, every second of the officer's approach, and every quiet detail that would later become crucial evidence. Even as the officers drove deeper into the trap, the cameras kept rolling, capturing a calm moment that was only seconds away from exploding into.
So you would look up to 6 months in the past and see if there's been any threat. Have they been investigating serious issues?
The moment the ambush began, everything changed in an instant. 1 second, the police vehicle was slowly rolling through the quiet street, and the next, the CCTV footage showed armed emerging from the shadows like they had been waiting for a signal. They didn't run or rush. They moved with purpose, stepping out from hidden positions with already raised, as if every movement had been rehearsed. This wasn't chaos. It was choreography, the kind of precision that only comes from careful planning. The first cracked. Through the calm, the sound echoing so sharply that even on video you can sense the shock that must have hit the officers. Within seconds, the unleashed rapid, coordinated fire from multiple angles. The footage showed the police vehicle jerking as bullets slammed into it, the metal buckling under the impact. The windows shattered almost immediately, glass exploding outward in every direction. It looked like the officers didn't even have time to process what was happening before they were trapped in a storm of bullets. You can see the police car swerving, a desperate instinct to escape, but it's clear the positioned themselves perfectly. They anticipated the officers' reactions. They cut off escape routes. They fired without hesitation. The CCTV captured the horrifying reality of ambush tactics. How fast things fall apart when one side is prepared and the other is caught completely off guard. Each frame of the footage is harsher than the last. Bullets tearing into the doors, sparks flying as rounds hit the engine block, the windshield collapsing. It's the kind of that doesn't just show what happened. It makes you feel how dangerous and unfair the situation was. This wasn't an exchange. It was an attempt to eliminate the officers before they could even defend themselves. Even with bullets raining down on them, the officers didn't freeze or surrender. The CCTV footage reveals something extraordinary, a raw, instinctive fight for survival powered by courage and training. Despite being wounded almost immediately, the officers attempted to return fire from inside the shattered vehicle. Their movements were shaky, their positions compromised, but they refused to give up. You can almost imagine what they must have felt: shock, pain, confusion, fear, and still they fought back. As the fire intensified, the driver tried to maneuver the vehicle out of the zone, but the damage was too severe. The engine sputtered. The car slowed. Eventually, it came to a stop under the weight of the assault. That's when the officers made the desperate decision to exit the vehicle. It wasn't bravery in a heroic movie sense. It was the kind of bravery that comes from knowing that staying inside meant certain. Constable Moko and Sergeant Sapa can be seen stumbling out of the vehicle, injured but determined to find cover. They move behind the car, using whatever protection they can get, returning fire even though the had the upper hand. Their courage in those moments says more about their character than any medal ever could. The third officer played a different but equally vital role. He managed to slip out of the line of fire and take cover behind a structure while the ambush was unfolding. From there, he made the urgent call for backup, a call that set the rescue and response in motion. Without that call, the could have escaped cleanly, and the injured officers might not have survived long enough for help to arrive. It's easy to overlook this part of the story, but it's important. Survival isn't just about back. It's about thinking through the fear, making the right move in seconds, and doing whatever you can to keep yourself and your team alive. When investigators finally reviewed the CCTV footage, it became clear why this video would soon become the backbone of the entire case. The cameras didn't just capture the ambush. They exposed the attackers in a way no eyewitness ever could. The visuals were sharp enough to identify faces, clothing, and even the way the suspects moved. You could see how they positioned themselves, how they communicated without words, and how coordinated the entire was. It wasn't the work of impulsive criminals. It was the work of people who knew exactly what they were doing. The footage showed the suspects stepping out of their hiding spots with their already raised. Their confidence, the way they approached the vehicle, and the speed at which they positioned themselves left no doubt that they had studied the officers' movements beforehand. Even the escape route they used, captured clearly on the last camera angle, showed planning. They didn't run in panic. They moved like a team that had rehearsed this moment. One of the most important details came from the angle that captured the license plates of a getaway vehicle. Another camera caught the reflection of a suspect's face in a window. Little fragments like these became powerful pieces of evidence that the detectives later stitched together. The CCTV didn't just show what did, it showed who they were. The video also helped investigators understand the sequence of events in a way that no report or interview could. It showed when the officers were first fired at, how they tried to escape, how the vehicle was disabled, and how the coordinated their retreat. Every second of footage answered another question. When the footage began circulating, the reaction across South Africa was immediate and emotional. People weren't prepared for what they saw. 3 officers ambushed with such precision and violence that it felt more like a scene from a war zone than a neighborhood street. Social media exploded with messages of anger, disbelief, and overwhelming sympathy for the officers and their families. Many said they felt sick watching it. Others admitted they couldn't finish the video because it was too painful to see officers so brutally attacked. The footage also sparked a national conversation about the safety of police officers. For many South Africans, it was a harsh wake-up call. If trained officers in a marked police vehicle could be ambushed like that, what did it say about the rise of organized crime? People began asking whether SAPS had the resources, equipment, and support they needed to survive encounters like this. The ambush made the reality of policing in South Africa painfully clear. The threats officers face are far more serious than most citizens realize. But despite the fear and outrage, there was also a powerful wave of support. Communities came forward in ways that surprised even the investigators. People shared information, reported suspicious activity, and offered tips that eventually helped narrow down the suspects. Some residents even reviewed their personal CCTV cameras to see if they captured additional angles of the attacker's escape. For once, the country felt united against a common threat. Messages poured in for the injured officers, praising their bravery and wishing them recovery. Many South Africans expressed deep gratitude, acknowledging the daily dangers officers face while protecting the public. The ambush didn't just spark fear, it sparked solidarity. Once SAPS realized the scale and brutality of the ambush, the response was immediate and unlike anything the community had seen in a long time. This wasn't treated as just another. It was treated as a direct attack on the state, on the men and women who stand between order and chaos. Within hours, specialized units were activated, including tactical response teams, crime intelligence officers, K9 units, and forensic experts. You could feel the urgency ripple through the force. This was personal. Investigators began with the most valuable evidence they had, the CCTV footage. Frame by frame, they analyzed the suspect's movements, clothing, and escape route. The footage gave them more than faces. It gave them timing, positioning, and behavior patterns. They could see who fired first, who coordinated the attack, and even who acted as lookout. Every tiny detail became a piece of a much larger puzzle. But they didn't stop there. Forensic teams arrived at the ambush site to recover shell casings, tire marks, footprints, and anything else the attack might have left behind. Ballistic experts examined the bullet trajectories to determine how many weapons were used and what types. At the same time, community members began stepping forward with information. Some residents pointed out suspicious vehicles seen days earlier. Others recognized one of the from the CCTV screenshots circulated by SAPS. That combination, technology, forensic science, and community intelligence, became the backbone of the manhunt. Slowly, the investigators began connecting the dots. They mapped out multiple escape routes, matched the getaway vehicle to known criminal networks, and cross-referenced faces captured in the footage with criminal databases. The suspects thought they had disappeared into the neighborhood, but the investigation was already closing in on them. It didn't take long before SAPS made their first breakthrough. Thanks to the detailed CCTV images, investigators were able to identify several suspects within days. Their faces, captured clearly, during the ambush were matched against known offenders and gang affiliates in the area. One by one, names began appearing on the investigation board, and arrests soon followed. The first raid happened early one morning, just days after the attack. Tactical units moved in on a safe house linked to one of the primary suspects. Inside, they found clothing matching what was worn during the ambush, ammunition, and a believed to have been used against the officers. It was exactly the kind of evidence prosecutors needed. As more arrests were made, a clearer picture of the criminal group emerged. This wasn't a random attack. It was an organized gang with a history of violent crimes. The biggest turning point came when investigators recovered the getaway vehicle from an abandoned lot. Forensic testing revealed fingerprints, DNA traces, and additional evidence connecting multiple suspects to the crime scene. Each piece of evidence was layered on top of the CCTV footage, strengthening the case and removing any room for denial. When the suspects were brought before the court, the footage was presented as the central piece of evidence. Judges and prosecutors saw the attack exactly as it happened: the planning, the intent. No spoken testimony could match the power of that video. The courtroom reactions were intense. There was no way to argue against what the cameras had captured. The suspects couldn't hide behind excuses or twist the story. The footage showed everything: where they stood, where they fired, how they chased the officers, and how they fled. It became the anchor of the prosecution's case and a critical tool in securing convictions. What happened after the ambush was just as heartbreaking as the attack itself. All three officers suffered critical injuries, and their recovery was not measured in days or weeks. It became a long, painful journey of surgeries, physical therapy, and emotional healing. Constable Moko, Saitant, and Sergeant Sapa endured some of the most severe wounds, the kind that leave scars far deeper than what the eye can see. Even after they were rushed to the hospital, doctors warned that their recovery would be slow and unpredictable. Their families waited by their bedsides with the kind of fear only loved ones can understand. The fear of almost losing someone who walked out the door that morning, thinking it would be just another shift. But physical injuries were only part of the battle. The trauma of the ambush changed everything for these officers. They struggled with flashbacks, anxiety, and the emotional weight of knowing how close they came to. Their families carried that burden too. Every loud sound, every unexpected knock, every dark street brought back the memory of that day. For the spouses, parents, and children waiting at home, the emotional recovery became a shared journey, one filled with fear, relief, gratitude, and the slow rebuilding of trust in normal life. Despite all of this, something remarkable happened. These officers, wounded, shaken, and forever changed, became symbols of resilience across SAPS. Their courage during the attack inspired others in the force, reminding them why they put on the uniform in the first place. They didn't surrender. They didn't run. Even while they fought to stay alive and protect each other. Their story spread through police stations across the country, strengthening morale and reinforcing the message that bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act in spite of it. The ambush wasn't just an attack on three officers. It was a wake-up call for South Africa. It exposed how dangerous policing has become and how deeply organized crime has embedded itself into certain communities. For many citizens, seeing the footage felt like witnessing a troubling shift. Criminals were no longer afraid of uniforms, badges, or marked police vehicles. They were willing to attack officers openly, with precision and heavy firepower. That reality forced the entire country to rethink what law enforcement is up against today. The incident reignited urgent conversations about police safety. People began questioning whether SAPS officers have the proper gear to survive attacks like this. Should patrol vehicles be reinforced? Should officers receive more tactical training? Are they equipped with body armor that can withstand the criminals now use so casually? These questions weren't new, but the ambush gave them new weight, and the pressure to find answers grew stronger. It also sparked debates about intelligence gathering. The attacks were too coordinated to be random criminals. Their movements suggested planning, surveillance, and communication. That means organized crime has evolved, using tactics designed to overwhelm or eliminate law enforcement before officers even have the chance to respond. For South Africa, this is a dangerous shift. It signals the rise of criminal networks that are more strategic, and more confident than ever before. Communities responded too. Many people expressed fear, wondering what this meant for their own safety. But at the same time, there was a renewed desire to support SAPS. The ambush reminded South Africans that when officers are under it, the entire country is affected. Law enforcement isn't just another government department. It's the barrier protecting citizens from the very people who launched that ambush. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.